I just need to do 3 more races in the 3 more multiplayer races in the Pagani Zonda to unlock rims. And I want them for today's GP stage. I want my car a bit better looking for the GP stage. I'm really angry, a bit frustrated this morning because I had to call the police last night and called them at 2:30 because there's some crackheads that have broken into the communal area of my building with a really large dog. They're making a lot of noise, doing drugs, breaking the building, smashing things. Everyone in the building, there's 8 flats in my building and everyone's intimidated by it. I call the police. First time ever, I was on hold for 2 to 3 minutes before they pick up. You dial 999 and actually someone goes, who do you want to talk to? Fire, police, ambulance, say police, and then you just get put on hold for 2 minutes. Anyway, then talk to them. They do their thing of listening and saying they'll send someone, but in the 20 years I've lived in Shepherd's Bush, everything except robbery takes an hour. So if anything happens, the police will come in exactly 1 hour, unless it's something they're excited about, and then they'll be there in 30 seconds. So if someone's breaking into a car and they're stealing property, they'll come immediately. But if someone's just going psychotic on the street and a potential danger, they'll leave it for an hour. And I think they have this. It's like with the NHS, their 4-hour response time. They just have to do something within an hour to avoid criticism, so they don't try and do it quicker than that, because if they do, it will make their life harder in the future to keep up with themselves as such. The Pagani Zonda can compete in this multiplayer. 2 more races. So as well, if they wait an hour before coming, then in their heads they're thinking, sorry, not in most of the police officers' heads, they're not thinking anything, they're just doing what they're told. But the data guy and the boss have worked out that if we don't turn up for an hour, 50% or 60% of things from their perspective seem to automatically resolve themselves, and they then mark it as nothing happened and we didn't have to do anything. So did any crime happen last night? No, because when they got here, it was 5 minutes after the guys left, and then the police pretend to themselves that nothing happened and they go home happy. But the people, because they weren't stopped, will come back the next night and the next night and the next night. And the police every time, and the reason it gets so frustrating is because the police will take an hour every time, and these people know the police take an hour to respond to any resident complaining about the trespass, so they know they can walk in any building around the borough and spend 55 minutes there until they have to move on. I'm furious with this taking an hour to do everything rubbish. It's more complicated to take an hour than just come when someone calls the police. It's like you've put it on a post-it note and you're telling people not to touch it for an hour. Then the hour comes and suddenly it becomes critical. You'd need some really clever management system to work out when to tell the officers to respond to the things that are nearly an hour up. Never heard such nonsense. It's only here, and you know, if I was in a building in Holland Park, they wouldn't have taken an hour to come for violent trespassers that have a big dog that are intimidating all the neighbours. They would have been there in 3 minutes. There was a programme about Grenfell recently. I saw Grenfell burn. I can see it from my home, and it's the same treatment that those people got. The way the state and the council and the police treat you when you live in London, they nearly, in most parts of London, except and my street is a garden street, but I'm trying to think, how do I describe the difference? But they just assume you're poor and uneducated, and I'm not either. I'm a lot more educated than any of those police officers. And I'm a lot wealthier than most of those police officers, and that's because I have a brain. And property in this world is very expensive, and it's very expensive to live where I live. And this assumption that, oh, I should shut up and go in my house and let them do their jobs, which they never actually do. Like, what? Why did they take an hour? Oh, because they're dealing with emergencies. That's utter nonsense. So I went to hospital once. Well, I've been to hospital many times, but one time when I went to hospital, I had to go to A&E. A&E doesn't even exist anymore. There's a triage before that to stop you getting in A&E because you can't self-admit to A&E. They make you wait in the triage before for as long as they can, so that then they send you into A&E, and only at the moment you walk through the doors to A&E does the official government 4-hour response timer start, that they have to deal with you within 4 hours. The time I went to, I think it was St Thomas's. No, it's not St Thomas's. It was St Mary's in Paddington. I went there. I had a serious problem. I had a very badly infected cyst, and I needed it removed. It was making me ill. I would have died, and I had been admitted to hospital before for the same thing, and I needed an operation for it. And I even went to the clinic first that I knew had to remove it, and I said, I've got another one of these things and I think you're going to have to remove it. And they were like, yeah, you're going to have to first go to A&E and tell them, and then they'll send you up here. The whole process in the end took about 8 hours, because when just to get them to look at it and then tell me to come back the next day for an operation, 4 of those hours I spent with a drip in my arm for absolutely no reason. They put one of the needles in my arm in case I needed medication later, for no reason whatsoever. It made me sit with it in my arm for 4 hours. The doctor that I was meant to see kept moving building just to manipulate the timers, and then they kept sending me to other rooms so that they could start the timer again. But worst of all was the initial process of the triage, which is you walk in, you tell a receptionist and say, there's something wrong with me, X, can I see a doctor or a nurse, etc. And they go, yes, please wait in the waiting room. And then you wait there patiently, and you realise that 50% of the room have been seen, and then every new person that's coming in is just getting seen in 10 minutes, and you've now been there 2 hours. You've then been there 3 hours, and everybody around you is new, and new people are still coming in the door and getting seen in 10 minutes. They're coming in like going, oh, I was on holiday in Mexico and I've got a sniffle, and then in 5 minutes they're in with a doctor, and I'm literally 3 days away from death with an infected cyst that needs to be removed. And I go up to the nurse and say, I'm sorry, it seems that everyone's getting seen and I've been here 3 hours. And they were like, oh, go away, that's because we're dealing with more important issues. You'll get seen when not everyone's got the same thing. Like, they start patronizing you that everyone's more important than you, when actually nearly everyone that was coming in had much lesser conditions. And I'm not saying this from I don't know what they had in the end, but I do know that they had made a fault, and that's why I hadn't been seen. It wasn't because other people had better condition, worse problems. It was because when I went in, the triage list, so when you went up to the receptionist and they put you on a list, what they did at that point was just decide to put you in one of 2 lists, list A or list B. I can paint the wheels now on this. That you go up to this reception in a hospital, you ask to see a doctor, and then the receptionist just chooses randomly to put you in list A or list B, and list A is for one nurse and list B is for another nurse. I got put in list B, for example, and what happened is 5 minutes after I got put in list B, the nurse left. And so everyone on list B just sat there for 3 hours while the receptionist paid no attention to the fact that they weren't getting seen. Everyone that asked, why haven't I been seen, got patronised and told that the hospital are busy dealing with far more important matters than the fact that you're dying. You know, it was utterly ridiculous. And then even after that, then all that happened once we ironed out that issue of the fact that the nurse had disappeared after I was shouting in the hallway to try and get attention because they wouldn't even acknowledge my request to see why haven't I been seen yet after 3 to 3.5 hours. And then we're banging on the door. They go and let yourself in the door. Ask her why she hasn't seen you. And I'm knocking on the door and I'm saying, are you sure? Knock on this door. They're like, yeah, go in the door. And the door's locked. And they're like, the nurse isn't even here. And they're like, oh my God. And then after that, I just get moved to A&E and have to sit there for 4 hours with the drip in. Then move me to an urgent care centre. No reason that I had this needle in my arm. They pull that out. I wait in this place for 2.5 hours until I start screaming at them. There's no one there. It's the middle of the night, and that's the only reason I'm waiting a long time, because they've held me there all day. And then I think it's nearly 11 o'clock at night, and then they just tell me to come back at 7 a.m. for an operation. And even then, when I come back at 7 a.m. for an operation, they just make me stand in a room for 3 hours naked waiting for the operation, and then tell me, oh, they can't do the operation. Can we do it without the general and just stick a knife in you and cut it out and you bite this? Oh, I hate this country sometimes. All the people going, oh, the NHS is brilliant. God, it's awful. And the police are morons and they're always late. I'm going to make sure I get a crime reference for last night so that a crime is recorded. I'll photograph all the damage they did and try and find out why they haven't apprehended the people so we can charge them with damages. Because even if you call the police about trespass, they don't even consider that a crime. The only time they actually come to your building to deal with trespassers is if they're doing drugs. And drugs aren't really the problem. It's like this, you have to use drugs to get the police to come to anything. Like if some kids are smashing up a car, like not smashing up a car, that's extreme. But if some kids are being aggressive on the street and shouting at women as they walk past and intimidating them, the police won't really come. They'll tell you they're coming. They'll take an hour. But if you tell them they're just doing drugs while they're doing that, they'll be there instantly to search them, because the drugs offence is so easy to process. It's like you've got this product that you can take off the criminal and say this is the evidence. Nearly every other crime requires so much more complexity that they can't be bothered to deal with it. So we just live in this world where they're running around after drugs to get their quick wins for their department. It's pathetic. They wouldn't know what to do if we legalised drugs. The police would be lost. Be like, well, what do we do now? We've invested all our infrastructure in drugs because we like confiscating money, because no one in England seems to be asking where that money's going. In America, they're quite blatant. The police forces all keep it themselves and they buy themselves lovely toys when they do big drug calls. But in England, it doesn't work like that. But I've no idea where the money goes. I feel a bit calmer having ranted a bit. I'm sorry if it got a bit unintelligible. The police have really pissed me off. Like, the people that broke into my building don't piss me off as much as the police deliberately taking an hour to come and solve it, because taking an hour to come solve it means it will never get solved. Like, they'll come tomorrow night, I'll call them again, the police will take an hour, the people will leave in 55, same will happen the next night, same will happen the next night. It's like they're completely, utterly useless. They don't care about, they're so myopic, that's the word, short-sighted. I should have jumped off the thing. That thing about just seeing if we take an hour, it resolves itself. It doesn't resolve itself. People get hurt and then you just turn up and can't see because they've gone home. It's like there were people crying coming into the building at like 3 a.m. So half an hour after I called the police, one of my neighbours comes home and she's crying and being consoled by her friend because, and I don't know what they were talking about, but I heard the odd words about being scared. And there's these crackheads in my hallway with a dog the size of a horse that's barking like it's gone psychotic. What do you think she was scared about? Had the police arrived in that half an hour that they had, that they could have, that they could have solved that person's problem. But now they'll probably want to leave the area, move out their home, along with another neighbour that came out at about 3 o'clock, crying to another friend about the same issues. And I forgot the nail in the coffin. I forgot the funniest bit. When the police actually came, that they went to the wrong house. Like they went to a house 70 meters away, maybe 100 meters away. And then I saw them go in that one. And I was like, I hope they're going to come here, because the crackheads could actually still be asleep on the hallway of my communal building. I couldn't track where they were at that point. They had left just before the police arrived, but I thought they could still be in the building, and at least the police could come and check, given that I've waited an hour for them to come. But they went to the wrong building because they didn't pay attention to the addresses. And then they drove up the road a bit to see if anyone else was in the vicinity, but they didn't even look at my building, not even a glance. So yeah, waited an hour for them to turn up because they're so busy, and then they went to the wrong address. I think I've got to make a formal complaint about their incompetence. Like my driving, I should make a complaint about my driving in this last race. But my phone is proper overheating now, and I'm not paying any attention whatsoever. Except now, when I might nudge someone. Lost. Painful. But I'm on 4G because I got cut off earlier, so my connection's dodgy. Oh well. Good luck, guys. I'm madder than you.